Welcome once again to Dialogue on Public Issues. I'm John Chowning with Campbellsville University. Today I'm very pleased to be interviewing a well-known person in our community, the Honorable Max Wise, our Kentucky State Senator. Welcome back, Max.
John, good to have you here.
Appreciate your taking time from a very busy schedule to interview and be with us again.
Thank you. Always enjoy coming on the show and appreciate your service to Campbellsville University and the community.
How's all your family doing?
Everybody's good. Very busy, as I'm sure everyone's family is this time of year. Sometimes we just consider ourselves Uber drivers, just taking and picking up our kids and where they're at.
The older they get, the more of that you encounter,
Exactly.
Right?
Look for that older one to get that driver's license soon to help a little bit of the load.
Exactly. Now, you're getting ready to begin the 2020 legislative session. You're in, your sixth year or so?
6 years, second term, yes.
That's hard to believe.
It really is. Now, the gray hairs are showing, but it has really flown by.
No issues really confronting the legislature this time. It'll be easy.
Easy budget. Everybody will get what they want.
Right,
so it's kind of like children at Christmas time.
Exactly. We better move right along
Exactly.
and clarify that before we both get kicked off the air. You will once again be chair of the Senate Education Committee. What does that position involve?
You know, working alongside superintendents, educators across the state, and also post-secondary leaders across the state. In terms of the budget, my committee doesn't really do anything as much with the budget, but I do play a key role in any policy decisions that we make. This upcoming session, in terms of legislation, there's some things that are going to be looked at in terms of some child abuse training that would be for educators across the Commonwealth. There also is a bill that's been pre-filed to deal with site-based decision-making reform, giving superintendents the ability to have the decision in the principal selection and not actually coming through site-based. And so they're just trying to structurally line that up, that could possibly be an issue there. But really this session is all about the budget, and it's all about funding.
Now, what other committee appointments do you hold?
I'm also on the Health and Welfare Committee, Economic Development, Tourism, and Veterans and Military Affairs, and also Economic Development. That a lot of people hear that all the committees that I have. One that I'm not on this session is Appropriations and Revenue.
Okay.
So when it gets into the budget, I used to be on that, but we have gained 2 new members in the last 2 years, and that required 2 of us to rotate off. So going into my second term, they like all the first-year legislators in the Senate to be on Appropriations and Revenue. And so since I moved to my second term, it kind of moved me out of the way.
What's the current Republican-Democratic breakdown?
We have 29, oh my gosh.
29-9?
29-9, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, just went blank there for a second.
It's a remarkable change. I can remember a time 2 decades ago, a little more than 2 decades ago, it was like 30-8.
Exactly.
Yeah, the other way.
You're right. And changes are really starting to take shift. I think of urban and rural areas of where we're starting to see in the rural districts such as mine, very Republican, very conservative, where more of the urban areas tending to go more Democrat. So I don't think it's going to be far off that we will pick up some more seats, especially in areas like Eastern Kentucky, where once we didn't think that Republicans could win Pikeville. Well, we now have that seat. I think Ashland could be in play soon. I think Prestonsburg area could be in play. But once again, the urban areas get bluer.
Well, I was going to ask that. Do you think there may be some trends the other way in areas like northern Kentucky, metropolitan Louisville, in the East End, Oldham County, Bowling Green even?
It's a very good point. I think northern Kentucky will stay red. Even though Covington and those areas, local elections tend to go blue, I think on the state elections up there, they tend to go Republican. Now, the governor's race, though, we did see a change in that.
And there were some extenuating reasons there, perhaps. One may have been the toll road.
The Brent Spence Bridge.
Governor Bevin's endorsement of tolls.
Yes.
There may have been a sway. I saw where Representative Koenig recently said that it was not that as much as it was expanded gambling. I'm not sure about that, but that's what he said.
I agree with that. I don't know if I agree completely with that statement. I think also that's a very large Tea Party area, and the governor's decision not to keep his Lieutenant Governor, Gina Hampton,
Lieutenant Hampton's
probably. Same thing with Bowling Green as well. So I think a lot of things are at play there. I think the state as a whole, we tend to be a little bit right of center as a state. I think we're still conservative in nature. But I think the urban areas are going to be the study for the future as a political science professor to look at the growing blue in those areas. But And I think that means for the rural areas, we need job growth and we need
Yeah.
economic development
Right.
in these areas.
Kentucky is trending. I mean, we're still one of the more rural states,
Right.
but our numbers are moving toward the urban.
Yes.
We actually are an urban state now,
Yes.
in terms of the majority of the
Yep.
population.
Yep. And you know, that's the importance of the census
Mhm.
as we look at 2020 of what we're going to see with redistricting and some things that could play. And if you look right in the middle of the state, we're growing from Covington all the way down to Louisville, Lexington, Bowling Green. But far west and far east Kentucky are starting to lose numbers
Right.
drastically.
We're fortunate right here in Campbellsville
Exactly.
that we have grown, not dramatically,
Right.
but steadily
Yep.
over the last 30 to 40 years. And-
Exactly.
And the projections are to continue that into the future. Now, your district is a rather large district. Tell us about the counties of the 16th district.
It is. I've got 7 counties that I represent. I've got Taylor, Adair, and Russell, Cumberland, Clinton, Wayne, and Macquarie County. So part of that old Hal Rogers district of 2
Right.
counties still there, but then also 5 counties of Jamie Comer. And unique, and I have 4 central time zones and 3 eastern time zones, which gives my Frankfurt secretary a headache. She doesn't understand central time.
You have at least 2 or 3 telephone area codes.
That's
for what
correct.
that's
Yes,
worth.
yes. I'm not unlike Jimmy Higdon. I think Jimmy Senator Higdon has had about every congressman since he's
Yeah.
been there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. But it's a great district. You know, I've got some wonderful superintendents, being education chair that I work with. You know, I do have a struggle for a lot of times industrial recruitment. You know, I think Campbellsville, Taylor County, Russell County seem to be progressing to Adair County. But you know, when you look at Cumberland and Clinton, Wayne and Macquarie, there's a hurdle that they have
Right.
to overcome down there.
It's tough.
It is.
In those counties.
Yep.
Now, in addition to the committee assignments, the 2020 session beginning, you also have a lot of meetings in the district, and you've had town hall meetings during the fall into the early winter. What are the constituents telling you? What's on their mind?
It's a great question, and you know, it depends a lot of times just on what the particular topic may be. You know, this district, I always say it's 3 things: God, guns, and babies. And those don't have to be in that particular order.
Right.
But I probably have one of on the red meat issues.
Yeah.
Second Amendment, bills dealing with evangelical issues, very conservative. And my voters realize that, and they respect me to make the decisions for them on those issues. So a lot of people against any type of gun control that would prohibit their freedoms of firearms. They were very, very positive from the last session on the pro-life bills that we passed, a record number of bills that have gone to the governor's desk and passed. And then also bills dealing with evangelical issues, such as putting In God We Trust back in school systems and making that a prominent logo. And those things my district are very much in favor of. Talking about some economic issues, tax reform, I do have a lot of positive momentum and comments about tax reform. Even though some of my counties are socioeconomically struggling,
Right.
they understand revenue has to be generated. Probably not so much with expanded gaming and casinos, but with sales tax. They understand if it's an equitable, fair across the board, many of them will be supportive of.
Now, as the session begins, new governor, Governor Beshear, Andy Beshear is in office. He is coming forth with a budget.
Yes.
What is the forecast? Let me back up. How's the current year running, the current biennial budget running, the current fiscal year budget? And then what are the forecasts? You know, I know the legislature has just come out with the outgoing administration issued a forecast, and I'm sure the legislature has some forecast. So what is the budgetary forecast, and what do you think the governor is going to come with?
First of all, I think it's going to be a very tight budget. I think it may be even as tight as it was the previous 2 years ago when we did the budget in 2018. I think we're on the horizon with some things that are happening, with some receipts that are coming in for revenue. I think the tax reform 1.0 that we did 2 years ago is showing some growth. It's probably not as much as we may have thought it could produce. But the big elephant in the room with the budget is going to be the pension system. I mean, $54.5 billion that we're still facing, and at least 44 of that coming from unfunded liabilities. We're still going to have to make structural changes in the pension system. We're going to have to continue to fund pensions. That's one of the things that credit needs to be given to Governor Bevin that made sure that we were fully funding pensions and being our commitment to what taxpayer dollars are. But right now, for the next 30 years, $12,000 per Kentuckian is going towards the pension, and that's every man, woman, and child. We have to get our house in financial order. I think Governor Beshear is going to come to us kind of like one of my children with their Christmas wish list, and it's going to say, here's what I want for Christmas. As a parent, I'm going to look at that and say, we simply can't do everything you've got. It's unfortunate, and we'll probably get some blame as legislators. We did for every budget. The governor presents the proposal, the House and Senate then work on it, and then it goes to conference committee. I think there'll be things in there such as raising teacher pay or a salary increase. He mentioned $2,000. The question then becomes, is that for new teachers or existing teachers?
I have read that the $2,000 per year raise for the teachers, and we all agree teachers as well as lots of others deserve merit increases, would cost the Commonwealth anywhere from $85 to $100 million a year, depending on whose estimate you would accept.
That's exactly right. And then we've got a school safety bill that we passed in 2018. 2019, and so I think with that we have to look, are we going to be committed to infrastructure improvements to schools? That's probably not going to include hiring more school resource officers, mental health professionals. I think what we'll do with school safety is we'll look to tax vaping products and e-cigarettes. That can generate some money off that, but once again, we're probably going to look at one-time expense cost. Some of our school districts have new schools. They're up to date with intercom systems and locking doors and things like that. But we've got some schools like Owsley County or Lewis County that simply are just very far behind. They don't have a tax base. They can't generate enough local revenue. So I think we're going to have to make some very tough decisions on so many things.
Governor Beshear during the campaign predicated the increase for teachers and other commitments he made based on a three-pronged revenue enhancement. One was expanded gaming.
Right.
I think he was saying $500 million. Prior estimates have run $200 to $250 million.
Right.
Expanded or doing sports betting. Estimates I've heard on that's 20 to 30 million.
If that, yes, yep.
But on
As
the high
estimates,
side.
yes.
And then taxing, if we approve marijuana for medical purposes, taxing it. Those three things, I believe, and I'm not being critical. I'm just stating what he said. Now, let's say 600 million, which is probably very much on the. I think most people would agree that's on the high end.
Yes.
Probably very high end. Is the most of that would be from under his revenue plan would be the gaming. Is it dead on arrival?
By the tone of the Senate leadership during the campaign, President Stivers as well as our Senate leadership said expanded gaming in terms of casinos, no, it's off the table. Sports betting, the House has got a bill, and all of these being revenue-related bills will have to come through the House. The numbers I've seen on that is anywhere from 12 to 15, upside of 20. Indiana passed sports gaming. Their first month, I think they had $34.5 million, but the state only collected about $800,000 of that. So someone's making money, but it's not the state revenue. You even could look at that as how are they going to, if that were to pass, I've not even seen the bill, but how much is that is structured to go towards the racing industry? So are we going to put it towards teacher salaries? Is it going to go towards school resource officers? There's so many things. I don't know how much of an appetite rural legislators will be for sports gaming. And then the marijuana, I think legalizing marijuana would be an instant no. And then legalizing medicinal marijuana, the issue you get with that is all of a sudden we're raising taxes on everyone's prescriptions. You can't just tax medicinal and not raise it on others. Chemo drugs, all the things right now that are very expensive to men and women and elderly people, all of a sudden if we're tripling that cost, that's not a vote that many of us will take.
Just as a private citizen, I would think putting sales tax on medicine, prescription drugs would be a very unpopular.
Very unpopular. Right now we already see prescription costs the way they're skyrocketed. It's very unpopular. I think, and I've mentioned this before, is a comprehensive tax reform approach raising sales tax.
Okay.
That's consumption based.
Raising the amount or expanding the base?
Expanding the base.
Okay.
Yes. So we're looking at a penny increase if it's
Okay.
a 1%. And with that, looking to continue to drop the state income tax. You know, I think we could go at it. We did the 1.0 2 years ago. I think now, you know, there was pushback, but I think also we saw people that were understandable with doing so.
Yeah, on changing the sales tax model, if you raised it from 6 to 7 cents, would you then, and then when I say expand the base or expand the taxable, what things that are taxed? Would that probably include food?
Yes, I think it would have
about
to.
have to.
It would have to.
I mean,
And-
to bring in
Right.
significant revenue.
And with that, if you did food as more of the consumption, I think you're looking at 350 to upward of $500 million. And once again, if we're talking about the three-prong approach that the governor had, and then going at what possibly the legislature is going to look to do, I think you could get more support with that tax reform approach. Yeah, and it's very difficult. We all know we live and represent different districts. Urban areas, they're not going to have a problem. They're going to maybe want expanded gaming. They're going to
Right,
want that
right.
because of 4th Street in Louisville or whatever it may be. But we know in our district back here, it's just not going to
Do
be
you
something.
think Governor Beshear, he hinted, if I'm not mistaken, during the campaign, maybe even stated, and again, I'm not criticizing, just bringing out
Right.
the facts, objective statements, that perhaps even if the Republican legislature said it's dead on arrival, that he could somehow mandate or by executive order put on expanded gaming?
I don't see how, you know, his father was in office before and tried that, and
I mean, conventional wisdom has been it would require a constitutional amendment.
exactly.
There's been a little discussion that it might be, there was one effort years ago to try the lottery board
Yep.
to do something, and that never got,
Yep.
that was either under Governor Patton or someone, it never got legs.
And once again, the issue we deal with also is not just by our constituents, but the lobbyist influence. You know, the horse racing industry and
Right.
so many others are going to say, well, we want 80% of that to go
Right.
to the purses at the tracks, and then 20% would actually go to the state. You're not generating a ton of revenue. So I think we need to look at tax reform, and I'm hoping that this session we can do those type of
What
approaches.
other issues will be on the agenda other than budget? And obviously, and again, the pension. You know, I think some people have the notion that what was done in 2018, 2019 was a one and done.
It's not.
Comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, you're facing, you know, $54.5 billion. We have to be committed to the pension, and I
You
think
have to fully fund
you
it
do.
every
and
budget
you
cycle.
You do, and we weren't doing that before. And I think my predecessor in the seat, David Williams, even made comments that we should have done that 20 years ago.
Right.
We should have. I inherited a mess, as well as the others that have came in office. But we have to be committed to fully funding it. And I think that, you know, the opponents against Governor Bevin, there should be praise where praise should be given. And typically how we do is we fund to the governor's percent of the budget for the pension. I'm interested to see what Governor Beshear's budget's going to look like as it relates to the pension.
That'll be a major point
Yes.
of concern.
Yep.
What else will be on the agenda in this 2020 session?
You know, this isn't a 30-day where we just deal with legislation, but I think you're going to see some issues such as sanctuary cities. We've already had a press conference on this before of not allowing mayors of large urban areas to dictate immigration, for them to say that this is you know, somebody's grandfather claused in or they're protected. We have to allow our federal law enforcement, you know, to make arrests, and so I fully support sanctuary cities. Daylight savings time. This has been something that's already been pre-filed. Most of these are House bills. Now, sanctuary cities will come from the Senate, but on the House side, keeping us on daylight savings time. After we spring forward, we just simply stay with that and not fall back. I've heard nothing but positive comments on this particular issue. That does not change Central and Eastern time zone.
Right.
It just, in terms of staying on daylight savings time. I think that'll have some momentum. But once again, we'll have to have the federal government approve that as well. So working with Senator McConnell, Senator Pond, Congressman Comer. Red meat type issues, I don't know how much on pro-life bills we will do since we've done so many. You could say a strategy would be to make the governor have to veto a pro-life bill or some type of conservative bill. We may give him a honeymoon period and then look to do that in his second year of office. I think a lot of this is just decided upon by leadership and directions they're going to go. Red flag laws, that's a gun control type legislation. I've had a lot of constituents ask me not to support that. It's a very popular thing in certain states that are not conservative states. I don't see that bill gaining much
Explain
traction.
in case some of our viewers might know what a red flag law would be.
Red flag is if a family member is exhibiting signs of maybe mental duress, or there may be something there and they feel like that they should not have the right to own a gun, that they can file what was then called a red flag against that person or family member, and essentially not allowing them the right to own a firearm. I believe in due process. And I don't believe that we should be dictating who should not have a gun. So I would not be supportive of a red flag law. I was very surprised to see some of our members supporting this, especially one from Shelby County. But I think that kind of gets into that urban sprawl, you know, kind of the areas there that are blue, that are maybe tending to move in the suburbs. In terms of other type of legislation this session, you know, gas tax, looking to raise the gas tax by a dime. You know, roads aren't just made, you know, we have to fund those and our bridges. So there's going to be a big push this session of doing some type of gas tax as well.
Now, we've recently seen some activity on the Heartland Parkway.
Yes.
Speaking of roads, and we, as you know, I never do an interview without asking just about everybody, including them, kiddingly, I even tell some of the preachers they may have to endorse when I interview them. But there's been some recent positive developments on the Heartland Parkway. Tell us about that and where that project stands and what the future holds.
Very excited and appreciate, John, your leadership over the years. I know this has been 16 plus years that you've worked on this. And it's great, I think, that we can see having who's at the table in this area in Frankfort. And I think with Senator Givens, Senator Higdon, myself, and Representative Carney and others, we now are starting to see barrels. And when you see barrels on the roads, projects are moving. And that all happens with the road plan. So now if you travel towards Lexington and you go through Lebanon, you're seeing the Dr. Salem George Highway, the 2+1. If you're traveling to Columbia or from Columbia to Campbellsville, you're seeing the 2+1 open up. I've heard great comments about people now that are excited about the logistics. You're soon going to see the bypass around INFAC that's going to be able to shoot across and head over around Elkhorn. It's going to go to the stockyards, the Campbellsville-Taylor County stockyards. That's also with the road plan. It's just right now buying up properties, which we're doing, making sure utilities are in place. Another big announcement that we've had is, especially from our federal delegation, of a multi-million-dollar, and John, you probably know the number off the top of your head, but it's
$9.8 million,
exactly,
I think, of federal money.
Federal money.
Leverage with several million state and local.
It's a matching type program. Representative Carney and I and Senator Higdon will be committed to this, making sure that in this road plan we can secure those state dollars for the matching program.
And that would that particular federal grant would help fund the section between Campbellsville and Lebanon.
That's correct. Yes. Exactly.
The
and like I
2+1
said,
between.
starting to see a lot of movement, and I think the ultimate end of this will be the Washington County portion that we'll get
to Springfield.
So, and then I think looking at 210, you know, with some visibility studies and some things there. So it's great to see that we're finally starting to progress, and I think it only helps with our industrial recruitment, our tourism, and I know especially for Campbellsville and University and Lindsey Wilson College nearby, for the students' access to get here.
Exactly. Now, are you supporting, you've been during your 6 years, you've been very successful in focusing each session on certain bills and so forth that you've taken lead on. Are you doing that in this session, any particular bills of personal interest and commitment?
Last session, by carrying Senate Bill 1, the School Safety and Resiliency Act, we're going to make some revisions to that.
Okay.
With every big bill that's over 40 pages, there's always going to be revisions that need to be done. We're going to look to add just a few things to that to get our goal of mental health professionals, open that up to more social workers, school psychologists, and not just for school counselors. We also will have to put the word armed in front of an SRO. Louisville, Jefferson County right now is pushing back against SROs in the public schools up there. And it's not that the teachers don't want it, it's not that the administrators, it's from a certain block of voters there. And we have to make sure our schools are secure. The other thing I've been working on is, and I've over the years, is for independent pharmacies across the Commonwealth. We're looking at possibly doing a Medicaid carve-out bill for reimbursement for our independent pharmacies. You know, they're struggling right now.
Yes.
They are, and it's nothing against retail. We understand how the world's working, but we also, as I believe, we need to be small business minded, and we cannot forget those that have hung their own shingles out there and that are serving their communities well.
As far as education, are there other things coming, other issues that will be on the table? Do you expect KEA to be lobbying for anything in particular other than salary increase and that kind of thing?
I think we've got to look at teacher recruitment, but there's so many things with that. You know, I don't know right now. We're trying to promote pathways for teachers and not just the traditional path, that hopefully somebody can come back after a career in business and try to get an easier pathway, still taking the praxis. But in terms of if their 4-year degree was outside of an education area, you know, if we want more coders and computer programmers. So we've got to think differently about education. I think we also, in terms of, you know, the KEA is going to always have their stances on certain bills, and I respect everyone's opinion.
Certainly.
But I think there could be something along the lines of corporal punishment, of eliminating spanking. You know, one of my areas in my district is local control, and school superintendents want the authority to be able to discipline students. I think there will be a move by the House to want to eliminate that. I don't think the Senate's going to be supportive of that. I think we still need to allow schools the decisions to face disciplinary actions of how they want to handle situations. So I think those are probably going to be some of the issues on the horizon that's out there. But once again, in a budget year, the complete and total focus is going to be on budget. You know, seek funding for schools, transportation funding, all of those things. Even though it doesn't come directly through my committee, as the education chairman, I still, you know, have, you know, ears to the ground on what I'm hearing from superintendents.
Do you think, and we're down to about a minute, that we may see a period of more civility in Frankfort? And without delving in name calling, there has been incivility and negative rhetoric on multiple sides and from multiple groups, including all sides and officials at the highest level.
Exactly.
Put it that way.
Well, and we see that across federal, state, and local positions. The only way we can work on issues is being civil. It's bringing everyone to the table and have a listening and open dialogue. And I really hope we can get there. Social media has probably taken it to the farthest extremes of where people hide behind a Twitter handle or whatever it may be. But I hope we can get there.
Yeah.
I do.
Max Weiss, thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
State Senator Max
Appreciate
Weiss,
you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Wish you and your colleagues the very best in the session, working with a new governor and new colleagues. This is John Chowning with State Senator Max Weiss, thanking you for being with us for a dialogue on public issues.